What is the goodness, my compatriots on the interwebs.com? It is I, Ray, once again back with a little bit of a reaction slash yap session. Yep, that's right. We got ourselves another reactionary one today, and this is about Shrek. It's about our goat, our boy. And if you're coming to this channel, I guess but I better make it known. I love Shrek. Shrek is my boy. I love the Shrek movies. I love Shrek 1, Shrek 2, Shrek 3. I can't tell you if I've seen all the Shrek holiday spin-off and specials, but I know I've seen them. And honestly, and apparently they're coming out with Shrek 5. And my goodness, I swear, I saw just like images of the trailer. I didn't watch it or nothing. And my goodness, kind of like in the last video on my thoughts about the Mario Bros. Movie, man, I really wish it was AI. Because what in the world? Why are we getting Monkey Pawed again? It's like Megamind all over again. What is going on? We literally had Puss in Boots, and then Puss in Boots The Last Wish, and then Shrek 5 is whatever this monstrosity that they're giving us. Oh, I hate. I'm gonna stop there. Anyways, today we have to watch this video, a couple of videos about a lady warning women that Shrek is a cautionary tale, apparently. So I don't know what that's all about, but shout out to my minions who I live vicariously through. They spotted this breach from the TikTok realm and they brought it up here on the YouTube realms. And so I just wanted to shout out my minions, mainly Sarcastic Chorus and Sandra here. Shout out to the sister and the brother there. But, with my Sauronic eye, like I said, I can live vicariously through anyone on the planet, really. Kind of like how Sauron could see through, like, his eyes of his minions and whatnot. So, yeah, that's what I can do. Or, we can call it my Sauron-gon. My Sauron-gon. It's my Keke Genkai, or maybe it's my Shinjutsu if you're up to date on Boruto. But anyways, let's get to this reaction, shall we?
I just posted on my Instagram story about how Shrek is not a fairy tale. It's a cautionary tale, an example of how a woman cannot turn an ogre into a man, but he can make an ogre out of you. Because she started as a princess, she had generational wealth, she could have had a pet dragon. And because she was stuck up there, no hobbies, no friends, the first person she meets is this moody ass stubborn ogre that basically negs her. She takes that as a sign to get him to like her, and she falls in love with him. He manages to get a princess to settle for him, an antisocial outcast, lives in a swamp. Isn't he also unemployed? She's thinking, oh my god, I got the loser to love me. Alienates herself from her family to live with him in a swamp, gets baby trapped. She's also an ogre now, so if she ever wanted to leave him, she's severely limited her potential dating pool. He's not willing to change anything about himself or the way he lives or to level up in order to provide for her and their family. Did I mention she lives in a swamp when she could have lived in a castle? People try to trick women into not caring about material things, but there really is a level that you need to care about when you're going to raise children, okay? Men can go their whole lives sleeping on the floor, but how are you going to raise children in that kind of environment? You could be the prettiest and richest girl in the land, and if you don't have a hobby and some friends, you'll end up in the swamp with an ogre, and you'll become an ogre too.
Yeah, this is the kind of stupidity we are talking about today. Because what in the world was that? Like, well, first things first, what did I like? Let's be positive. Let's get the positives out the way. I really liked the dramatic music that this lady added in there because it really does make everything that she is saying so much more shocking and appalling to actually hear. And it's kind of basically all I could hear as I'm listening to these words. And they're kind of going in one ear and out the other. And I'm processing. And, my first initial reaction, okay, first, like, I was outside of like the reactions of like I said, sarcastic chorus or anyone else who's brought her up. My first instinct was, wait a minute, That's racist. Because what are you talking about? All this. She's making a lot of assumptions about Shrek and ogres in general, okay? First of all, we really don't even know the lifestyle of ogres in Shrek, but just based off of Shrek and like what we get from the first movie in the very beginning and just how humans treat ogres, or even in like a later film, I believe Shrek 3, when he was just walking through town and people saw him, their first instinct is to run away, scream, or to try to attack and kill him. They literally have mobs that come out on his swamp, his territory, his home, trying to hunt him down and literally murder him, okay? He literally has signs put up to tell people to go away. This is his spot. And you know what they do? They trample on it. They ignore it. They violate his territory rules, his signs. They violate his sovereignty to land and to live in peace. So he defends himself. He scares them away. He doesn't even kill him. He scares them away. But again, at least by Shrek and ogre standards, I really don't think they don't mind eating people, because again, just what he said to him. So like, ogres don't mind harming people and eating them, but Shrek is different. Okay, he scares them. He wants to be away. He wants to be out of the way, isolationist and alone. Okay, so he first, and so not only that, but like she claims that Shrek is like a bum living in a swamp. Okay, first of all, ogres, that's the ogre lifestyle choice. Again, basing this off of Shrek. So that's the way the ogres live. But first and foremost, he's a landowner, like I said. He owns a house, property, and he defends it. And he can take care and provide food for himself and everything like that. Even though she says that Shrek can't, that basically kind of like at the end tail in there where she's like, oh, he's living on a floor. Bro, he, again, literally has land, a big house, a house that can support a bunch of people when those fairy tale creatures break in and start messing with everything. And not only that, but when Fiona does enter the picture and he has kids, he gets bumped up to a family of 5 and he can still support them just fine by himself, okay? So let's get that out the way. Second and foremost, so back to the racist point though, she's making, like I said, making a lot of prejudiced assumptions against Shrek and ogres as a general, which I would say is what the humans in the movie do as well. So she's basically just judging him for the fact that he's an ogre alone and not for the merit of his own actions, which he displays throughout all the movies. Okay, and so basically, at my first thought was like, just hearing this, I was like, oh, she's a Farquaad girl. Like, that's what she is. Okay, she just wants a Farquaad. She just wants the Prince Charming. Okay, she just wants the man with the good looks and all the money, the glitz and the glamour. And I would say she really wouldn't even mind Farquaad just because of the fact that, again, he has the castle, he's got the wealth and the status. Okay, basically, she's comparing Shrek to those people where she's like, oh, he's got a swamp versus somewhere Fiona could have had a man with a castle. Yeah, she could have, but deep down, that's really not what she wanted. And also, she's again also making just a bunch of assumptions the on what Fiona thinks, despite Fiona of her own mouth and volition choosing Shrek and choosing to be an ogre. But this lady's entire premise is talking about men turning women into ogres when it's the women, or Fiona in this case, who wanted to be the ogre because she wanted to be with Shrek. So it's like, why are we bashing or shitting on Fiona's own choices just for the sake of trying to shit on Shrek? So not only, so she's trying to advocate for Fiona, which I can get and understand, but like, she's literally shitting on Fiona's own choices just to shit on Shrek. And it's like she's kind of trying to shame Fiona in a way, but I don't want to get on too hard because, again, because of my Sarengan, I actually found out something extra that a lot of channels didn't really talk about, and if there did, I really only found one other channel who revealed this. So this is also how I found out about the fact that there's a freaking part 2. So again, shout out to my minions. Shout out Sarengan, my Sarengan. So here's the second one.
Shrek is a cautionary tale part 2. For context, Shrek is not a fairy tale. It was produced by DreamWorks and distributed by Universal Studios, and I think written or produced by a guy that used to work at Disney and was trying to stick it to his former employer. So people saying that Fiona was an ogre because she had a spell cast on her, so at night she would turn into an ogre and only true love's kiss would reveal who she really was. And that's why she kisses Shrek and she ends up as an ogre. But technically she could have fallen in love with an employed ogre, a compassionate and loving ogre that is willing to extend himself and accommodate for his ogre wife. She could have fallen in love with a man that wasn't Prince Charming. Like, the problem is that even knowing that Shrek is not a fairy tale, women are still brainwashed into thinking that you only have two choices in life: the loser that lives in a swamp or the narcissistic bubblehead Prince Charming. There is a secret third choice: accepting yourself and not requiring some external force to do that for you. Because if she can only accept being an ogre through somebody like Shrek, now she lives in a swamp. If she has to deny herself being an ogre to settle having to coddle the ego of a narcissistic prince, then she continues to carry shame around with her. But you can actually learn to self-accept just by deciding that that's the case. And if she had spent a little bit more time, maybe around her family, maybe getting some friends, maybe being honest with herself, maybe talking to a witch and trying to get the spell undone, she wouldn't be sad in a swamp with her ogre children and her ogre husband. And there's also the interpretation that's like, okay, maybe she just wants to be an ogre. She didn't want the responsibilities of being a princess. But again, you need to have long-term thinking. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? In the end, she placed more weight on the illusion of love than on the reality of her lifestyle. Something to think about, okay? Everything can be a teachable moment if you let it.
So yeah, here, like I said, some more nonsense. Like again, shout out my minions. Shout out the Sarengan. It's a really, really good Keki Genkai. Really good shinjutsu. I'm really glad I have it. You guys should really get one. Low key, I recommend. But anyways, like I said, more nonsense because again, she's doing more bashing and more shitting on the choices of Fiona, which I really don't get. Like, I don't get that because like it's almost as if she didn't watch the movies or she did, but she's ignoring very, very key moments and points and details just to try to make Shrek look bad and indirectly also harming Fiona as well. She, like, again, she says that if Fiona could have accepted herself, she'd be happy, or, you know, she wouldn't, sure, she'd realize that she can do better. But, like, really, the only issue with that is Fiona is, excuse me, but Fiona is kind of brainwashed, okay? She's brainwashed by her dad, first of all. First, let's talk about her dad and her family. First of all, she's rich. She is rich, rich. She is that girl. She has money. She came from money, okay? She was only in the tower because her dad put her there, okay? But she could have left any time. Later movies tell us that. She could have broken out of any moment. You know, she got fed up enough. She got tired of waiting for Prince Charming. In fact, what she's saying, this lady, comes true. She got tired of waiting for Prince Charming. She accepted herself as an ogre and she broke herself out of that tower. And you know what happened? She became jaded. She became the female warrior princess girl boss leader of this ogre rebellion because ogres were being persecuted. Ogres were literally being hunted down, captured, and being persecuted. Like what? Ogres were literally being discriminated against, put in chains, enslaved, in cages. And Fiona was fighting to free them because she accepted herself as one of them. Like, huh? And again, I guess also something for some reason or another, true love's first kiss stopped applying because I guess she's an ogre permanently in that timeline. So I really don't know what happened with the spell, but basically, literally, what she says comes to fruition. Fiona does rescue herself. And in that movie, Shrek has to relearn the fact that he does love and he misses what he has because he's being selfish. So it's like another life lesson. So like yes, I do agree with her to an extent that Shrek isn't compassionate. He's really rough around the edges, and Shrek the third, I would say, really highlights and shows his selfishness in the beginning and like his own issue and how he has to overcome that, which is what the whole movie's about, and like his consequences for that. And he does. And so again, I would say it's kind of like another breakdown of Shrek's character, of how he does try to make himself a better ogre for Fiona. In fact, the second movie, which again I would say completely destroys her argument from the very first movie, but then again with her second point, now she's shifting the goalpost. Now she's like, oh, but Fiona could have married an ogre with a job. Fiona could have been with an ogre who cared. As if, like I said, in the second movie, Shrek doesn't care. Shrek literally turns himself into a man, and a really sexy man at that. Like he could walk into town and women were literally throwing him themselves at him because that's just how good dang looking he was. And he only wanted Fiona, and he literally said, Fiona, if you kiss me, we can be literally the it couple forever. Like he literally's like that was basically what Fiona threw away. She threw away having the perfect man that every woman in the kingdom would have been jealous of, and she turned it down because she again chose to be an ogre, and she said with the ogre she loved. Okay, so again, we're shitting on Fiona's own choices, also ignoring that it was her father and her father who put her in the tower, because he's a bastard who I believe was also the one who also cursed Fiona with the ogre spell anyways. So it's again, it all stems from the father. He's an asshole. So that's also important to highlight and notice. Fiona can take care of herself. Fiona, again, also going back in the first movie, I keep remembering because again, this is a yap, it's a ramble, but even in the first movie, Fiona constantly demonstrates how capable and how, like warrior princess she is. But because of her father and her lineage, and in the fairy tale Far Awayville, she's basically following the script. She's trying to follow the Disney script that the lady mentions girls are brainwashed into believing, which I guess it's kind of true in a way because Disney princess movies, their target demographic was for young girls. And so, what is a common pattern that happens a lot in Disney film movies with princesses? Well, they meet a Prince Charming. He's really sweet, sweeps them off their feet. They fall in love at first sight or whatever. And eventually, they get together and the princess ends up in a castle. Like, it's funny like thinking about it now, like all the dudes that the princesses kind of like have a love interest with or like get with or whatever, a lot of them do have castles, like, huh. So it's kind of funny. And so I would say yes, I have heard the story where she mentions that the DreamWorks guy basically left Disney and made Shrek to try to stick it to Disney. And I would agree with that. But I would say the point of Shrek is to be a counterforce to the brainwashing message of the Disney princesses. Basically, to say, hey, you don't need Prince Charming to come in, sweep you off your feet. You can have an ogre who will still love, who will literally change species for you and literally defend you, can literally fight. Like again in the first movie, he got chosen to go get Fiona because he's the better pick out of humans to go get her. And like she's right, Shrek basically does neg her in the beginning because he's just there for a job. And like again, this is a parody, a subversion of the Disney princess trope that Fiona was basically trying to follow. Okay, she was expecting the Prince Charming to come to be hot, kiss her, sweep her off her feet, take her back to the castle. Instead, it was Shrek, and he was like, I ain't putting up with your nonsense. Let's go. And so, and not only that, but she does meet the man that basically she was supposed to have been swept off her feet by, her supposed would be Prince Charming. And she was disappointed. He wasn't what she hoped for. He was an asshole, and she could immediately see that. But again, because of the script, because she was sold the fairy tale, she was going to throw her life away to be with that short asshole. But instead, Shrek comes in and breaks it all up. And again, she chooses Shrek. This is all about Fiona's choice, but we're bashing Fiona's choice, acting as if it wasn't Fiona who did it. But we're trying to make this broad paint stroke as if Shrek is like again a cautionary tale telling women, watch out. An ogre will, if you get with the wrong man, he'll drag you down. Fiona could have dragged Shrek up. She could have left anytime she wanted. Again, in the first movie, she was like basically demonstrating how not princess she was. She fights. She absolutely can kick your ass. I'm pretty sure at any given moment, if Shrek ever tried to make any wrong move on her, she would absolutely have kicked Shrek's ass. No difficulty. Like, I mean, Shrek might be stronger, but like, what's he gonna do if he can't grab her and she's literally putting all the martial arts on him? Like, it wouldn't be a good time for Shrek. I'm sorry. So I don't get what, again, like, we're just robbing Fiona of her agency, which again also was kind of the, I guess, the point of the first movie, where it's like all of her agency is supposed to go to her Prince Charming, but she took back that agency and she changed the script and again went with Shrek. So I really just don't get the whole idea that Shrek is a cautionary tale, because I would say Shrek is the exact opposite. Shrek shows himself while still fallible. He's willing to put in the work to overcome those flaws. He wants to be a better ogre for Fiona because she brings it out of him. And even when he does have a family, and even when he does, have what he wants, he's still Shrek. He's not perfect, okay? And he still has his flaws. He's still an ogre at heart. And even again, as Shrek Third shows, though, he will overcome those when he's reminded what he wants, what's important to him. Okay, and so I just I don't know. I don't know. All I got is like, all I have is like, this is the second time that my Saronic eye activated, and it comes from TikTok, and it's another lady talking some nonsense from what I can gather. So I'm just like, I don't know. It's strike two is all I got to say. This is strike two. I'm not saying anything else. I'm not saying I'm noticing a pattern or nothing like that. Got two more strikes to get through. So let's just leave it at that. But I would honestly, heavily say Shrek is in no way a cautionary tale, unless you're squinting your eyes and literally ignoring everything else and shifting the goalpost, and also indirectly bashing on the woman that you're trying to uphold. But that's all I got. Anyways, I'm gonna go out to get another video, see what my Saronic eye can find, and maybe even come back with another thing of milk. But other than that, BRB.